Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Defender. So glad you're with us. Glad that we're back with all you folks. It's great to be with everybody again. Sorry we had a little bit of delay there, a few days extra, maybe a little bit longer than normal in trying to get out the next video. So thanks for the patience. Also, really want to thank all the new subscribers. We just continue to get new subscribers. Really appreciate that. We absolutely have to have that to kind of keep moving the channel forward. So please continue to subscribe if you like the content. There were also some comments, or some great comments as always, and thank you for those, but there were also some comments once again on my face blur, which I try to explain on every video, but just to kind of clear that off once again, the face blur is strictly because of my day job, and I just want to be able to express my views and my content on my channel, because unfortunately not everyone is, right, Second Amendment friendly, so it is what it is, and I just want to be able to protect my identity so I can present my information on my channel freely as we possibly can. So that's the reason for the face blur. So kind of that admin out of the way. But again, just a big shout out and thank you to all the new subscribers and the comments. Love the comments. Keep those coming. So what we want to do today is continue to build on this. I guess we'll call it the Smith & Wesson Jframe snub nose series. That's really kind of what I'm doing here over the next several weeks. We started off with a kind of a little macro intro video. Then we went chronologically with what we're trying to do with these Smiths. We did the Chief Special. Then we moved to the 40 Centennial. My version was actually the classic series with the grip safety, so kind of harking back to the lemon squeezer. If you haven't seen those two videos, check them out. Hopefully there's some good information in there for you. So today we're moving on to the third in the series. I think there'll be a total of 4 or 5. And we're going to move to and this is a clear and safe firearm, we're going to move to the 38 Bodyguard Air Weight. And this was released in 1955. So here again, we're kind of chronologically moving through the 50s between the Chief Special, the Centennial, in terms of when it was introduced, and then when this particular firearm was introduced. Just another really, really interesting firearm within the Smith & Wesson line. And again, just kind of shows all of this thought and vision and probably input they were getting then in the 50s to produce these different version J-frames, 50s and 60s, really, because this innovation continues into the 60s with these. But this is just another really neat firearm. And I know due to the way this room is set up and the distance where the camera has to be placed, you guys can't get a really good view of this. So that's why we do the deep dive, and I think we'll get straight into that. We won't kind of move or drag on the intro. We'll just get straight into this Smith & Wesson 38 Air Weight Bodyguard, and yeah, we'll take a look at it next. Right. So as we just talked about or just introduced, the Bodyguard Model 38 Air Weight. And so that's what we want to take the deep dive on today. And there's a lot to talk about this pistol. As usual, there's a lot to unpack with a number of these Smith & Wesson firearms. And so we have that here again. So we'll try to manage through all the different topics that we need to talk about. And they're kind of intertwined. And, we'll try to get through all that. But maybe the best place to start, again, is chronologically. So in 1955, Smith & Wesson decides that it's going to introduce this particular model, the Model 38 Bodyguard Air Weight. And it's really a build off of the success that they're having with the Chief Special and just the massive interest from the public in these small frame, pocket carry, J-frame, 38 Special 5-shots. And this is a cleared and safe firearm, so we can work with that. And so there's just a ton of interest in these, and so it's building. Smith & Wesson is building on this and building variations of it. Right? We've talked about the Chief Special, we talked about the Centennial, with the grip safety, and all of that. And so there's a lot of concept and vision coming out of Smith & Wesson with these. And here we have this particular concept, and the concept centered around this firearm is a alloy frame, still has a steel cylinder, and it's a very, very lightweight gun. Weight, I think technically in the catalog, we'll show that in a minute, was around 14 ounces, I think, when I weighed it. Probably with the rubber grip, it was more like 17 ounces. And that's a noticeable difference than, let's say, the Chief Special. And this is also a cleared and safe firearm. But when I had that Chief Special in my hand, and I love the all steel frame guns, as I alluded to in one of the other videos. This is my preference. I do like that weight. We're already talking about a relatively small gun, so the weight of it to me doesn't really matter from a carry standpoint. But you know, when you pick up the air weight, it's I almost want to say featherweight, but it's, you know, there's a noticeable difference in the weight of that firearm. And of course, there's positives and negatives to that, as we know, right? We're more easily, or more, maybe more readily, going to carry it if it's lighter, and it's easier to carry all day, maybe easier to carry just in a pocket holster. But of course, we do lose a little bit of in my opinion, we lose a little bit of recoil management with the aluminum frame. So it's the trade-off, right? Everything has a trade-off. That's why I said in one of the other videos, I do personally prefer, it's just my personal preference, the all steel guns. But you know, there's a lot to be said for the air weight as well. So that's what we have. And not only do we have an aluminum frame, we have a shrouded hammer, right? As you probably either already know or astutely picked up on as we kind of just are looking at the firearm. And this, once again, my understanding, was a direct influence from what Colt was doing, I believe. And I'm not a Colt, historian or real aficionado. I'm a Smith guy. And but my understanding is, I believe it maybe was the agent, the Colt agent, and a shrouded hammer device that they could kind of, or a shroud they could put over the hammer and make it more concealable pocket carry type of pistol revolver. And that's what Smith & Wesson wanted to compete with, and that's what they brought to market in 1955. Now, these were actually made from 1955 all the way to 1999 as this model, and we'll talk a little bit more about the model evolutions in a minute. We'll just run those down real quick. But so, we can just kind of run through the pistol on our deep dive like we normally do. And so again, we have a Jframe 5-shot 38 Special Smith & Wesson revolver. This one is blued. I believe there were also nickel versions for sure. I don't think there was a stainless steel version unless that was later, decades later. We can look that up. But this one is maybe just also to date this one. As I said, they went from 55 to 99. Mine is somewhere between an 82 and an 87. I didn't call Smith & Wesson on this particular serial number, but I know it's an 82 to 87 for two reasons. One, in 82, they stopped the pin barrel, and I do not have a pin barrel. And in 88, it went from a Model 38 to a Model 38-1. And this is, I'm not sure the camera can pick that up. Maybe it can without the cylinder falling back on there. I'm not sure, is a Model 38. And we also know that from 1957 on, Smith & Wesson designated a model number, and of course it's stamped on the inside of the frame. So what else do we have here? We have, once again, of course, Smith & Wesson stamped, roll stamped into the left side of the barrel. We have again, if this is an 82 to 87 version, we have the more updated cupped cylinder release. We have the very nice and traditional Smith & Wesson logo right there. And the finish on this gun, I think, is excellent. It's really, really a nice finish. Picked this firearm up used at a shop. No box, no original grips, but the price was very good. And again, I'm pretty much a fan of everything that Smith & Wesson was doing from the 50s on through the 90s, and so this certainly falls in that category. We'll come back to the hammer in just a minute, but if we flip over on this side of the firearm, again, we have our traditional stamp information that Smith puts on there, made in the USA in Springfield, Mass, and all that. And then up at the top here, or I should say on this side of the barrel, we have, I don't know if we can pick that up on the, it says air weight, and it says 38 CTG, which I always think is neat, and CTG is, of course, cartridge. So 38 special as the cartridge. I should say 38 special. It's not just 38, right? This is a 38 special. Make sure we clarify that. We've already stated a 5-shot. So we move back to the hammer. And so this is very interesting, right? They designed this hammer and they designed this shrouded frame. I believe it was even called the humpback for very obvious reasons. And it then in turn shrouds the hammer. And again, the concept generally was that still in the 50s, there was still this belief, or not a belief, but the fact that many shooters still wanted to have the ability to cock a hammer. And so Smith & Wesson wanted to incorporate that in, but in this more snag-free presentation. And of course, that's what they do with this design. And it was very, very popular. And I like it just from the unique standpoint. Again, I think if you're into Smith & Wesson J-frames and snub nose, it's just another one of these just fun firearms to own from the history standpoint, and having it in your collection if that's what you're looking for. I personally don't shoot revolvers single action at all. I never cock or very rarely, I should say, do I cock the hammer. I'm always utilizing it in the double action format because that's the way I believe if I would use it if I had to. So I'm not. My personal preference is not to be cocking hammers and things like that. I'm always doing the double action draw. But and again, we've got a clear and safe firearm, and you can easily do that, right? You can get that, and it does exactly as it's advertised, and then you're in that position. Now, I have to admit, if you had gone ahead and done this and cocked the hammer and then made a decision that you didn't, you wanted to bring it back to the double action or the hammer forward, you really have to make sure your thumb is there, right? You wouldn't want to make any kind of mistakes with that. So again, could be one of the potential negatives of that. I don't know if it's a negative, but you just have to be cognizant that you do have a channel here that dirt can get into, dirt and debris or lint or what have you. So, you would have to be cognizant of that and making sure that you don't have anything developing in there or building up in there. What else can I tell you about it? It has the traditional Jframe site, right? As we've already talked about in a few videos, and we're going to continue to talk about it. We have this channel through here, and we'll just try to get that. Sometimes the glare and how this comes off on camera is a little difficult. You then again once have this half moon square notch. It seems to almost get a little obscured by the hammer. To me, the more I think about it, but obviously then you would have to get your sight alignment there with the front sight. Maybe not obscuring as much as I think, but visually it's there. And then of course you have a fixed front sight serrated up here at the top. And this does appear to be the thinner sight. I think I had mentioned in my 40 Sentinel video that's a classic series, and that they had broadened that sight, made it a little bit wider, and it does make a visual difference as you're trying to pick up the front sight when you're putting your front and rear sight together for your sight alignment. So, but so very, very traditional through here. Nothing unique or really different there, in my opinion, on the sighting system of the J-frame. So on this particular J-frame, and again, the rest of the gun is in very good shape. The bluing is in very good shape. Beyond that, it didn't have the original wood grip or stocks and the box. It was a great purchase. Now, having said that, moving over to these grips and stocks, this Pacmar grip is extremely comfortable. I really like it. It really does aid. Of course, I think we all know that the rubber grips generally provide a nice purchase and a nice place for your hand. They're not obviously as elegant, I don't think, as the wood grips. But the wood grips are relatively small on the J-frames, right? These round butt, small J-frame stocks, and again, we talked about that in one of the other videos where you'll see a lot of grip adapters put on here, just because because this is so small and narrow. You can already see that the rubber grips that came out whether they're Pacmar or the Hogue grip is kind of interesting. I have one of those here. I bought this and hadn't actually put it on any of my Jframes because I was actually surprised at how big this grip was. So maybe this is helpful for you guys if you're contemplating one of these rubber grips. The Hogue grip is definitely larger. Again, the benefit would be that you're going to have a much nicer purchase there. You're going to have more to grip onto. But if you're doing a pocket carry, then you're once again kind of making things bigger than maybe you need to. This Pacmar really is a nice middle ground. Certainly smaller than the Hogue. I find it a little bit nicer than the traditional boot grip that are out there. This I was pleasantly surprised with this, and it really did allow a good grip on the firearm. It was very pleasurable to shoot. I really enjoyed shooting it, and I also think that the rubber grip kind of helps mitigate or compensate a little bit for the aluminum frame. And helps you manage that recoil a little bit. So this was, again, missing my wood grip or my wood stock, which I just love on Smith & Wesson, especially blued guns. But the practicality and functionality of this Pacmar rubber grip, I cannot argue that at all. It just flat worked. So that's really kind of the walk around on this firearm. I don't think we forgot to tell you anything. It's a smooth trigger. At this point, it still looks like they're using forged parts. I don't think there's any MIM parts in this gun, even though it's an early 80s. I don't think they've moved to that. It's a 3-screw, which of course designates the number of screws on the frame. We don't talk that much about that, but we can certainly try to talk about that more in videos. I think the other thing I wanted to talk about was, again, just the product evolution. So again, we already said 55 to 99, and we know that the 38-1 came out in 88, and they made basically 3 variations of this, or if you will, or engineering changes. So there's a 38, then the 38-1, the 38-2, and then the 38-3, and it ends in 99 with the 38-3. They then picked this product back up in 2009 and run it to 2011 as the Model 438, and I honestly don't know. I'll look that up and put it into the video. I don't know if they're still making in some form or fashion today actually this shrouded hammer version, or are they all pretty much centennials with the covered hammer? I think that is the case, but we'll double check that. The other interesting fact about this firearm, which some of you may know if you own one, is that they actually introduced the aluminum version first in 55 before they introduced the steel version, and the steel version was the Model 49, and it would have just been the steel version of this firearm. So I found that interesting. I believe, again, the impetus to this was not only the general interest in the public, from the public in these new Jframe 5-shot 38 specials, but I think there was also a huge law enforcement interest in these, and I think the all aluminum frame and its weight savings was a real direct interest in that from law enforcement, and Smith & Wesson was happy to oblige. So I really think that was basically the things I wanted to cover on this particular firearm. And I think this information, I had a comment about the information. I'm just trying to show a firearm that I have access to or possession of and have shot it, and what I think of it. So if you're contemplating one, or maybe you have the Chief's Special and are thinking about an Airweight Bodyguard, hopefully maybe this helps out, gives you some visual and some background to it, etc. So really, we're not trying to be a historian here, but provide some historical data, but also some very practical, firsthand information as well in terms of what I think of the firearm. Again, it shot great. It was very, very similar to all the other Jframes. Again, I really can't speak enough to this Pacmar grip. It was really kind of a surprise, or how well that worked, or maybe it was just the size and how it fit in my hand, how the whole package kind of came together. So on one hand, I'd love to put some walnut stocks on here, but I actually do carry this firearm from time to time, and that grip is, like I said, probably the best one I've found so far for my hand. What else do we want to talk about? I think I mentioned I would bring out the catalog. This is probably the oldest catalog I have, and it's actually just a reprint. You know, you can get these reprints, which are kind of neat. But this is from 1969, and of course we still have the air weight in there, and you can kind of see that model 38, of course, 38. You know. 38 special, 5-shot, 2-inch barrel. But they have the weight here at 14.5 ounces. Front sight is fixed, 1/10 inch serrated ramp, as we talked about. And again, it would have come traditionally with walnut magna wood stocks. Now, I don't know. I have to admit, I don't know if by mid-80s were they supplying all of these with a Pacmar grip. I suspect not. I suspect they were still providing these with wood grips, but I know at some point Smith & Wesson started to do that. I've got a 1990s catalog here, and I didn't mark the page ahead of time, so I don't know if we can find this fast enough. Probably not, right? Because there's a nickel version there probably. But I was just trying to see if they were showing any of these with rubber grips or stock, and they are not. So in the 1980s, 1990, they would have still been providing these with walnut wood stock. So this is probably an aftermarket that somebody put on here, but again, I just can't complain about the functionality of it. Really, really liked it. I've always been a big fan of Pacmar grips. I had them on a service revolver that I carried. I've used them before in other revolvers, and I have to admit, they tend to work very, very well, and I do like it as a brand and a product. So again, hopefully you guys like that video. Hopefully, again, you got some information out of it, got to see one up close if you don't own one, or again, if you're contemplating putting one into your pocket or your collection. Once again, would I recommend it? Absolutely, for what it is, and we've kind of talked about that before as well in some of the videos. The capability or the relevance of 5-shot snub nose revolvers, as we've already mentioned, I think there absolutely is. There's a place for this type of firearm still today. Obviously, the arguments go all the time about number of rounds and 5 shots and 6 shots, and is 6 shots enough? Is 8 shots? Of course, we all know that we'll never know if that's enough because of the situation that we might find ourselves in. If we look statistically at civilians, traditionally 6 shots and down is enough. But of course, it's only enough until the day that it isn't. But I still believe, and I do carry one myself, as I mentioned in one of the other videos, I think it's a great grab-and-go gun. It's a firearm that I'll choose if I don't have my primary firearm with me, or I'm stepping out late at night or the middle of the night, maybe to walk the dog or something to that effect. Again, maybe for whatever reason, I don't have my primary firearm with me, and somebody out front in a driveway, knock at the door, whatever the scenario is, it's very, very easy to grab and go. I guess one of the things, I can't remember if I used this in one of the other videos or not, but I happen to have it close by. So the holster that I use with this firearm, actually, this is generally how I have this. This is my Jframe that I normally carry. Actually, like I said, I just really fell in love with these Pacmar grips and how well they fit my hand and how well I shot it. And I didn't really want to carry one of the pristine ones, or one of my Chief Special from the 50s. This one from the 80s works just fine. And this is a leather Don Hume holster. Like it a lot, actually. It's got a nice little hook on it and a clip up here. It depends on the pocket. They generally work really well as a pocket holster. I'm not a huge pocket holster guy in general, but again, as I just mentioned, for a grab-and-go kind of firearm, I think this works really, really well. I know there's some other nylon and neoprene style holsters which might have a little bit more of a stickiness to it, and I can certainly see that. I think I'm going to get one of those as well and see how I like that. I'm kind of a sucker for leather in general, and this is just a really kind of pretty nice holster and well made, and it does serve the purpose perfectly. So yeah, so I think that's again what we kind of wanted to cover and talk about with this firearm. It's the third one in our chronological order, and hope you liked it. I hope you liked the information. Please continue to subscribe. Please continue to support the channel, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Defender.